Good morning, the honorable speakers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. May I have your attention, please? As the second day of EROPA conference is about to begin, so we would like to invite you, all of the participants, to come into the catch-up ballroom.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. And as we are about to begin the second day of EROPA conference, you're kindly requested to join us in the ballroom and please be seated. Thank you.
And we also would like to inform you, during the conference, we kindly ask you to change your mobile phone into the silent mode, right?
Yes, and also all or any other communication devices, please also set it into the silent mode during the conference and also on each session of the EROPA conference 2018.
Yeah, and today we have a second plenary session, and of course we still have a parallel session 3 and parallel session 4, and one agenda that is we are going to prepare, that is gala dinner at Garuda Wisnu Kencana or GWK.
Indeed. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this morning we will start the second day of EROPA Conference 2018 with the plenary session at this catch-up ballroom. And then after that we will have a short coffee break time and then continue with the parallel session on the same room like the previous day. We have Rama, Laksmana and also Gamelan A and Gamelan B room as the parallel session. And after that, we will have a lunch break and then continue with the next parallel session. And in the evening, we will continue to have the gala dinner at Garuda Wisnu Kencana. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's just start this morning session. And in the morning session, we will talk about the Asian Leadership Forum. And of course, as the theme of our plenary session is Phronetic Leadership in Responding to Global Megatrend Speakers, in which we will have the speakers here, which will focus on this topic. So we will find out the leader, a phronetic leader, who has an ability, of course, to make a judgment and also to make a best decision based on these, or also able to serve common goals, which means that it is based on the common goal of the society itself. So what is good for the entire society. And for further discussion, we will just directly invite the moderator for our first plenary session this morning.
Yeah, we would like to invite Professor Priyono Cipto Haryanto, Commissioner Indonesian Civil Service Commission.
All right, as we already have Bapak Professor Priyono on the stage as our moderator, so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we will now hand the floor to the moderator, please.
Thank you very much. Well, I would like to invite Professor Alex Brillantes and also Bapak Gede Pitana from Ministry of Tourism. Come, Pak. So this morning we are talking about the, just only two, Pak, because the other couldn't come. We have talking about the Asian Leadership Forum. This is phonetic leadership in responding to the global megatrends. And I don't know whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, because you have that 3 person which is graduated from the University of the Philippines. Yeah, Pak Gede Pitana is from Ateneo, but Ateneo is just in the back of the University of the Philippines. So we consider it as the university area. Okay, let me introduce our speakers this morning. You know, we have just only 2 speakers because the other speakers couldn't come. Pak Hasto Wardoyo, the district head of the Kulon Progo, Indonesia. Hopefully nothing happened to him, you know, because nowadays a lot of the bupatis and the regency caught by the Corruption Eradication Commission. This is what I'm worried. Actually, there's a lot of yesterday somebody present the case of the Bupati Klaten, the Klaten Regency, and also the mayor of Tegal. Both of them are very beautiful lady, but got the corruptions in the regions. So I'm sure there is nothing with Pak Hasto, just only because he couldn't come over here. Maybe he has some business in over there in the west, Central Java. The Kulon Progo is in the Central Java, close to the Yogyakarta actually. If you have the meeting in Jogja, I think you will come. Okay, so we have just only two persons now, Bapak Gede Pitana and Professor Alex Brillantes. I will read the CV of the Pak Gede Pitana. Pak Gede Pitana is now a senior advisor to the Minister of Tourism, but previously he is also over here. He's a director of the Bali Tourism Authority, actually, long time ago, 2001-2004. Pak Pitana is a professor in tourism, postgraduate done in the Australian National University Canberra, while his master, when I mentioned before, is from the Ateneo de Manila University. And then the other one is Professor Alex Brillantes. I don't think that I have to introduce him to you because he's well known with the people from the EROPA. Lastly, he was a commissioner at the higher education or something like that, yeah. No, because I'm not so familiar with the bureaucratic position. No. And also he is the former dean of the National College of Public Administration at the University of the Philippines. Without further ado, I will ask Pak Gede Pitana. Oh, Professor Alex first, because he said Professor should be first, something like that. Okay, Professor Alex, you can speak over there or over here. Yeah, because usually the professor is always standing. The bureaucrat is always sitting. Because if the bureaucrat is standing, somebody steal the seat.
I really like the humor of my good friend. I must say that he also was, I'm from the Philippine Society for Public Administration, and I'd like to let you know that one of the first awardees of the Philippine Society for Public Administration, outstanding accomplishment in public administration, is none other than Pak Priano. So thank you, Mr. Commissioner, to my colleague in the table. I guess my presentation will be about how many minutes, sir? 20 minutes, okay. Okay, so terima kasih banyak. It's it's an honor to be part of this very important forum. And as my slide says, I'd like to thank my dean, Dean Maria Fe Mendoza. I hope she's here. But I'd like to thank her for the opportunity for this, for being part of this forum. She's also the Deputy Secretary General of EROPA. So Dean Mendoza, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. Okay, no wonder. This doesn't work. Can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
How come this one doesn't work?
Yeah. Okay. So, or maybe I can stay on. Anyway, okay. So my time is running. Don't worry, I'll not use overtime. But anyway, how do I do this now? I guess I'll just go down and read it from the floor. Okay. Okay. So anyway, my discussion today is on Asian leadership, is on phonetic leadership. I know that many of you are familiar with phonetic, but I know that there are some of you who are still relatively asking, what is this thing called phronesis? And my discussion today will just give an idea, if you may, of a project, among others, that we've been doing through the longest time in partnership with the Graduate Institute for Policy Studies. Professor Takada is here. There he is. And we've been working with GRIPS in Japan together with Pak Eko and many of you in the room. And of course, Dr. Agus, the president of IAPA, within the context of phronesis. Okay. So, yesterday, let me begin. So about 20 minutes, Professor? Okay. We begin, I'll take off from yesterday's session. I was lucky to have been part of the session yesterday. And if you remember, the Minister of Administrative Reform, Safruddin talked about the VUCA world. I'll talk about that. VUCA world. And then I'll take off also from the parallel sessions inspired by young, bright graduate students from SKKU. I don't know if Hiamin Lee is here, and Hyo Jo Lee, and of course Nayul Kang. They're all from SKKU. Are you here? Well, they did a very, very good presentation yesterday on what they called leadership and followership. Oh, my dean is here. Dean, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. In fact, before you came in, I was acknowledging you for nominating me to be part of this forum. Anyway, okay, let me begin. We start with the VUCA world. We start with many of the presentations yesterday by some of our colleagues from young students from SKKU. Excellent, excellent presentations who talk about followership, the role of culture, etc., etc. I don't know if some of you have seen this exercise, but it's an old one, but for those of you who haven't seen it, I'd like you to take a look at this because they said, that I added this because yesterday the minister said, it's a book world, vulnerable, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. This is from my friend from Indonesia, from Malaysia. She always uses this. But very quickly, especially among the millennials, what is the most valuable photo company that sells no camera? Okay? The most valuable photo company that sells no camera. Instagram. See, that is right. Okay? And what is the world's largest taxi company that owns no vehicles? Uber and Uber and of course Grab. Okay? What is the largest accommodation provider? Owns no real estate. Airbnb. My goodness, Rudy, you are really the millennial here. Okay. The most valuable retailer has no inventory. Alibaba. Okay. And the largest growing TV network, they sell no cables. What is that? Netflix, right. And of course, all of you should know this. What is the... I'm sorry, I wish I could just go down so I can read it there. Okay. What's the most popular media provider that creates no content? Come on, everybody. Of course, it's Facebook. Okay, my point, dear friends, when we talk about VUCA world, when we talk about complexity, we're talking about a rapidly changing world. Things that were the same when EROPA was founded in the 50s, I think, or 60s, are not the same anymore. It is changing. And as one of our presenters said yesterday, everything changes, but guess what, dear friends? The thing that has a hard time changing is what we are all studying, governance. Many, many times, government just is stuck, and things are rapidly changing. And I think in a VUCA world, in a rapidly changing world, in the world of megatrends, governance, government, public administration has to change. It's within this context that we at the University of the Philippines, together with my colleague, Dr. Lisan Parante Calina, we've developed this model, and it has been published. I'm very happy to let you know. And we talk about the importance for reform. Today, I'm going to talk about the need for reform for leadership. But equally important, when we talk about reform, we need to change institutions, structures, policies within the context of administrative reform. Then we need to change values, mindsets. Yesterday, Dr. Prasojo talked about the need to change our mental models. Yes. And then the third one is citizen engagement. The people have to get involved. The people have to get involved for reform. But the most important is leadership, which is what we talk about today. Leadership. And when we talk about leadership, it is what we call phronetic leadership within the context of duty bearers, people who are elected. And I put there globalization. We are in a rapidly, globally environment, but we have to think local. Think global, act local, and finally, co-opetition. We cooperate with each other. We are friends, Gotong Royong, ASEAN, but hey, we're also competing. That's the elephant in the room. It is co-opetition. Globalization, co-opetition within the context of leadership. So as I said earlier, there you are. It's a rapidly changing world. Thank you very much. And thank you. Public sector. I'll just use this, if you don't mind. Don't worry. Public sector is very important. So when we talk about public sector reform, usually we talk about the 3 E's: efficiency, economy, effectiveness. But in public sector, we add 2 more E's, and that is the need for equity, the need for ethics and accountabilities, which we call 5 E's and 5 E's and an A. So the traditional efficiency, economy, effectiveness for private, but we in the public sector, we have to talk about equity, ethics, and accountability. And equally important, as I mentioned earlier, these are the areas for reform, including what I'll talk about today, leadership. Leadership is key. This is a picture I took at the Commission on Audit, and this is a guy named Diogenes. He went around the city holding a lamp, and they said, "You're crazy. It's so bright. Why are you holding a lamp?" He says, "I'm looking for an honest man. I'm looking for a leader." And I think that is really a problem today. So many people out there, but to a certain extent, the problem is as old as Diogenes, looking for an honest man. And even Albert Einstein talked about the need for a leader who is one who, out of clutter, brings simplicity, discord, out of discord, harmony, and out of difficulty, opportunity. Point, dear friends, leadership has been a concern that has been talked about for the longest time. Ancient Mesopotamia, Greece, China, and Lao Tzu once said, when a good leader, one who talks little and listens much, has done his work, the people will say, "We did it ourselves." Phronesis. We did it ourselves. The leader is not about himself, it is about the followers, as our one colleague yesterday talked about. So my point, dear friends, when we talk about phronetic leadership, we talk about going back to the duty bearers, we talk about the need for phronetic leaders responding to global megatrends. We talked about Aristotle and Plato, including theory and practice. I better hurry, okay? Just tell me, Mr. Moderator, if I'm 5 more minutes, okay? And I'll talk about some issues about the study that we've been doing in the Philippines and also with our colleagues from the region, including Indonesia, Thailand, Japan, etc., etc. Okay, what is phronesis? It is practical wisdom. It is prudence, it is sound management. It is dynamic, continually adjusting and addressing the pressures of globalization. Globalization, think global, act local. The pressures of, this was mentioned by Dr. Eko yesterday, the pressures of environmental, energy crisis, technological governance, pluralism, and populism, including those I mentioned earlier in the VUCA world. Question, are leaders able to cope with this, and are we familiar or are we knowledgeable about the rapidly changing world, as mentioned by the minister yesterday, and pressures of competition, co-opetition. In ASEAN, in the region, we are friends, we cooperate. Gotong royong, mushawara, but we are also competing with each other. Co-opetition, okay? So it is, phronesis is really about, it's not really new in that sense because it's about theory and practice. It is praxis. Theory and practice, it is dialectic. Hegel once talked about thesis, antithesis, synthesis, thesis, antithesis. It's really practical wisdom, being able to combine theory and practice, the theoretical world and the real world. It is Professor Nonaka in Japan talking about seki. He talks about socialization, externalization, combination, and integration. It is about episteme, technique, and phronesis. Combination, dynamic learning too, practical knowledge. This is the model talked about by Professor Nonaka. It is a continuing process of searching for knowledge within the context of combining idealism and practical world. Okay. This next slide is very important. If you look at this, you have Plato on the left, carrying a book, Timaeus, and pointing upwards. Plato is pointing upwards, and Aristotle is pointing downwards. How do you combine theory and practice? How do you combine what is eternal and what is practical? Phronesis is practical knowledge. Okay, and that was the Asian Leaders Forum that we attended, and Dr. Eko is there, among other things. So phronetic leadership is also known as wise leadership, using knowledge to unleash the potential of knowledge, and it is practical wisdom to choose the right course of action. This is not the way to make a presentation, clicking your slides so fast, but anyway, I know I don't have that much time, so I'll just go ahead. Phronesis is a set of virtuous habits. Phronesis is what comes from within. Phronesis is a set of virtuous habits, making decisions, and taking action to serve the common good. Our moderators earlier talked about the importance of the common good. Okay. So we talk about this within the context of, it comes from the idea of phronesis. Practical wisdom is experiential knowledge. Plato pointing upwards, Aristotle pointing downwards. Theory, practice, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, socialization, externalization, combination, and integration. It is continuous process. So what the VUCA world, what was true in 1950 is not as true today, and what is true today might not be true might not be relevant rather 20 years from today. Point, phronesis is really a process of continuous creation of knowledge. So it is practical wisdom. It is making the right decisions, taking the right actions, and the capability to find the right answer. I will talk about some cases, and about which we co-authored and was published by Eko. He was one of the authors together with Evan Berman. When we had some cases on local officials in the Philippines and also higher education leaders in the Philippines. Well, we have what's called the Galing Pook winners and also the Philippine higher education career system. Pak Priono said I was once commissioner of the higher education, and yes, I used to be a commissioner there, and we worked with many, many presidents, and we have advocated, if you're a president of a university, if you're a mayor of a local government, you should be phronetic in that sense. Practical wisdom, somebody searching for the common good. So it is not really new. What is new here is the emphasis that we have to continue changing. What is new here is the need to emphasize the need to search for knowledge. And I will also talk about now some cases from the region which we have written with the Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, Professor Takada is here, and a knowledge creation study that we have done, Wise Leadership. What were the cases? Okay, so I have about 10 more minutes, Mr. Chairman. I will look, so these are some of the cases we've looked at. So our session today, phronetic leadership in a dynamic changing world. Phronetic leadership. And you know, it is not new, but these are leaders who are from the region. We wrote some cases, and leaders who from the region were able to exhibit phronesis, perhaps without even them not knowing it. In some of our cases, we talked to some of our leaders, and they said, oh, I didn't know that was phronesis. What is phronesis? And these are some of our cases. First is, we have done some case studies from Indonesia, from Thailand, from the Philippines, and of course, from, this is of course your president. They focused on President Joko Widodo, who was your president, governor of Jakarta and Solo City mayor. And when, as you know, when he was mayor of Solo City, he did a lot of innovations, which to a certain extent exhibited elements of phronesis. As we all know, Solo City is in this excuse me, southern part of Java, and the success of Joko in Solo City, this was a case written by one of my colleagues from Indonesia, I think Dr. Eko and his colleagues wrote this. He bring about street vendors, reviving traditional markets, building trust in government. Phronesis, building trust in government. He brought them together within the context of Blusukan. Dr. Agus, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm now using your case, okay? Dr. Agus is there, okay. But they wrote this case, and he talked about, okay, in the study, 5 more minutes. In this study, we talked about the importance of phronesis. In this study, our colleagues from Indonesia chose some phronetic leaders, and they chose President Joko Widodo, who used to be the mayor, as you know, of Solo City. He worked with street vendors, and he worked with the objective of restoring trust in government, and he worked with the importance of governing. He talks about his governance is governing without government. Phronesis, building a common understanding, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're a street vendor, whether you're a local official, common understanding of the problem, attaining consensual solutions, and a shared commitment. So Jokowi's leadership style in building Solo City was important in having communication breakdown within the society. One of his quotes, Professor Agus, the problem is not in the office, the problem is out there. Every day I go to the people, go to the street. I can ask the people what they want and what they need. Phronetic leader, Jokowi, perhaps even without him saying he was a phronetic leader. Okay. And the next slide talks about a case in Japan. These were four mayors in Mitaka City in Japan. This was my colleague, Dr. Hirose. And the phronetic leaders, the role of 4 successive mayors. Phronesis is also continuing what was done before. In the Philippines, sometimes the problem is when you have a new mayor, things change. The importance of phronesis, building upon hard-earned gains. And this was done in Mitaka City, in Japan. And the first mayor was Heizeburo Suzuki. And he talks about, leadership should be in the hands of the leader, but the leader should not be autocratic. And a leader should learn to listen to his subordinates. The next mayor, Sadao Sakamoto, talked about the importance of returning the administration to the hands of the citizens. So like Jokowi, they talk about the importance of participation, the role of the citizens, and should not move until the citizens propose something. The role of the citizens was central in the leadership of Mitaka City under the 4 mayors. And the 4th mayor, Keiko Kiyohara, talked about the importance. We need to listen carefully to hidden voices of every citizen. Phronesis, not you as a leader. Phronesis, listening to the people who really matter. If you look at this, you have in the 60s, the mayor was, on the last start, talked about the importance of even mayor and the citizens were at the same level. Third, 2 more cases, Mr. Chairman. Third, so I talk about Indonesia, we talk about Japan, Thailand. Mr. Pongsak, another mayor who created in Yala City. If you've been to Thailand, in the southern part, there was unrest because of some problems there. And the problem in Yala City, this is a case written by my good friend. His name is Utisan Tanchai and our colleagues. And they talk about the importance of a phronetic leader to address the problems of unrest in southern Thailand. So many innovative projects in the city of Yala to restore a harmonious society. He launched again Phronesis People's Council. He launched a youth camp, worked with the youth in his homeland to build peace. He restored, he shared a cultural, he created a living library, and also he created something very, very interesting, Yala Youth Orchestra, including, interestingly, a bird city, a Yala bird city. Point, very violent before, brought together the people, very, very creative in terms of, among other things, creating these different projects where people came together, and that is Phronesis, that is Blusukan, as we point out by the president of, your president now. So it's the importance of Phronesis, people-centric leadership. It is leaders who have common good, the common good of the people in their hearts, and who have the capability to put forward positive changes. Final case, dear friends, Mr. Chairman, final case is in the Philippines of a case of Mr. Tony Meloto. Okay. Okay, Mr. Tony Meloto, who also brought together the poor and the young. But the most important thing about Tony Meloto, he brought together, addressed the problem of poverty with not much help from government. Government was there, but what he did was he went ahead and worked with the poor people on his own and got government to really simply serve as the enabling framework. If you look at this in Gawad Kalinga in the Philippines, and if you're joining our conference in November this year, Mr. Meloto will also be one of our speakers, and he'll be speaking in Japan. He will transform. He's transformed societies. If you look at the slide on the left and the right, these are the same places where Mr. Meloto worked. Gawad Kalinga, working with the poor. Phronetic leader. Okay, I'll just go ahead now because okay. I'll end by saying, what are the abilities of a Phronesis leader? So my session today, in this very brief time, was talk about the importance of phronetic leader in the rapidly changing society. And this is not only theoretical, it is also practical. And it takes off from the importance from, it's as old as phronesis, which was used by Plato and Aristotle. And it talks about the importance of theory and practice. It talks about the importance of continuous creation. It talks about thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It's almost Hegelian. And it talks about, if you talk about Nonaka, he talks about socialization, externalization, combination, and Seki, and internalization. So it's a continuous process. But most important, or equally important, Phronesis is listening to the people, listening to the stakeholders. And there are 6 abilities, and I'll end with this, Mr. Chairman. The ability to make a judgment on goodness. So Phronesis is knowing what is good on its own. It is something that we know. In the Philippines, we call this uwido. You just know it is good. Number 2, a Phronesis leader is ability to grasp the essence. A phronetic leader can look at the question behind the question. When somebody says something, it's not exactly that, but you know the motivations perhaps, you know exactly the message. And this is so Asian, because sometimes we Asians don't say things directly. A phronetic leader is able to interpret. Third, ability to create a community. We are a community. Public administration scholars from EROPA, public administration from Indonesia, public administrations. But we are we share a context, and a phronetic leader is able to create a shared context. And finally, ability to articulate the essence, as I mentioned earlier, ability to know what we really want to say, and the ability to use political power. Phronesis is not all about followership, it's also about being able to demonstrate political will. So yes, people participate, but at the end of the day, as the leader, you use your power. That's why they elected you. And finally, for me, the most important of Phronesis is really the ability to foster Phronesis in others. A phronetic leader is not threatened by his followers. A phronetic leader would rather make the person, his subordinates, even greater than them. Even greater than them. I don't know if you're familiar with the verse in the Bible. It just comes to my mind right now. Saint John the Baptist said, he must become greater and greater, and I must become less and less. A phronetic leader is somebody who always who knows to build, is able to mentor others without being threatened by them. And that is what phronesis is. It's really about the ability to foster phronesis in others. So this is a framework, as I said, going back to this, I'm thanking down Mr. Chairman. It's really, when we talk about phronesis, when we talk about reform, we need to talk about the importance of bringing about changes in structures, institutions. I talk about 5 E's, efficiency, economy, effectiveness, but in public administration, we have to emphasize equity. For whom is public administration? In public administration, we have to emphasize ethics, equity, and accountability. And that is what phronesis is all about. Number 2, when we bring about reform, we change mental mindsets. We also involve the citizens. So this is phronesis. And finally, it is leadership towards a common vision. Yesterday, we had a very nice presentation of our Singaporeans who talk about SG, SG conversation. ECHO yesterday talked about Indonesia 4.0 towards a common vision. Malaysia had their Malaysia 2020. In the Philippines, we have what's called Ambition Natin 2040. Point, it cuts across generations. It cuts across and should not be stuck in political partisanship. Within the context of globalization, think global, act local. We are one we are one community, and we have to cooperate yet compete. Competition and competition. So with that, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Chairman, and to a certain extent, I'd like to thank again my Dean for this opportunity, and as we say in the Philippines, thank you, maraming salamat po, terima kasih banyak.
Thank you very much, Prof. Brillantes. You see, it's not just only standing, but walking around. That's the habit of the professors, usually. Walking around to find, whereas there is beautiful students. Okay, so thank you so much. The day after tomorrow, Pak Brillantes, Pak Jokowi will set up the success team. Because next year, we will have the election for the presidential elections. And then I will think, I propose you to become one of the advisors to that team. The way that you act, there's a lot of friends from the NIPA that can propose you. One thing that he talked about the belusukan, maybe later on you can ask Pak Agus, Professor Agus about the belusukan. But actually belusukan is, they wanted to hear the aspiration of the people, something like that. This is why Jokowi got the presidential election in the 2014, because he make the belusukan. Also, he become the governor of Jakarta region because of that one also. Right now, all the presidential candidate going to belusukan. If I'm not mistaken, Pak Orlando, President Duterte was asked by Pak Jokowi to join him belusukan in Tanah Abang market at the time when President Duterte visited Indonesia at the time. So he wanted to show this kind of belusukan. Belusukan is becoming very, very, effective way in campaigning the president. Okay, without overdue again, I would like to ask Professor Gede Pitana to present his paper. Oh, he's also standing because he said that he's also professor. So all the professors standing. Later on, we don't have.
Please. My telephone, sorry. So I can take your picture.
Very good morning to all of you. Selamat pagi, Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Profesor Priyono, Prof. Alex, Chairman of EROPA and members. It is really a great honor for me to stand in front of you here to share my experience in doing activities in the government. I will not talk anything about theory anymore because I don't know the theory of public administrations, but I'm doing the daily activities in public administration. I'm a professor myself in tourism in Udayana University right here in Bali. And from my presentations, maybe later on, you can see that the behavior of a leader is strongly influenced by how he is evaluated. Or, to be more precise, how a leader behaves depends on what indicator he is assigned, or what performance indicator he is trying to accomplish. Because in most cases, all leaders want to be seen successful. So for example, if a region, the performance indicator is the increase of regional income, then he will doing everything to achieve the indicator increasing the regional income. So again, we behave on what we are evaluated on. I don't know if my personal experience will give you insight, but at least I can tell you 5 stages of my bureaucratic activities. As I mentioned before, I'm a professor in tourism in Udayana University. And then in 2001, at the beginning of regional autonomic region, I am assigned as the director of Bali tourism. For your knowledge, in Bali, there are a number of main activities. And most important activities, economic activities in Bali is tourism. So I'm assigned as the director of Bali tourism. Start from the academic. And then from local government, I'm appointed to central government in Jakarta. In central government, I did so many jobs. We call it a tour of duty. In each of this space, I got different thing to do and different way of thinking. Because, as I mentioned before, I am task-oriented person. So, what is task given to me, that will be my main focus. Let me start from the first. From academics to bureaucracy. It is not easy. It is not easy. Why? When I was purely a professor, I did research and I was very, very critical to the development of tourism in Bali and Indonesia. Based on my research in Tonga, in Fiji, in Solomon, and other Pacific islands. And then I did research in Mediterranean. I was very critical to the development of tourism in Bali. But when I'm assigned as the director of tourism for Bali, I realized that what I said before in a critical way didn't work. Why? Because there are a lot of limitations in the bureaucracy. In so doing, then I changed the way of my discussion, one single point. And also at the time, I was very critical with the new regulation called regional autonomy. I was quarreling with Professor Riyad Rashid that for regional autonomy Indonesia, the main job of the government are put in the kabupaten level, district level. But I strongly argue that for small province like Jogja, Jakarta, and Bali, the regional autonomy must be put at the province level. How can we divide a small province called Bali, a small island, divided into 10 districts, with every district is autonomous? In tourism perspective, tourists stay here in, this is Badung Regency. But they only stay here overnight. Then they will go to the other part of the province, to other kabupaten, other district, to enjoy, explore Bali. But then the tax only come to where he stays, in Badung. Badung right now got 10 trillion hotel and restaurant tax, while the other regency in Bali get 0. Is it good for Bali? No. So, in that point again, my point is, I try to think comprehensively, and then because I have to do the job to organize Bali as a single entity, so I try to juggle with the regulation. I invite all Bupati how to share the job. So until starting that point, that 50% of tourism authority, kewenangan, apa kewenangan Pak ya? Tourism authority, tourism job authorities are pulled up to province, not in kabupaten. The philosophy is simple, that tourists visit Bali, they know Bali. They don't know Badung. They don't know Gianyar. They don't know Buleleng. What animal is that? But they know Bali. So it must be managed under the name of Bali. So until now, it is inherited by my successor to have one island, one management. There are a lot of critics when we put the autonomous region in the regencies. Then, from local, I moved to central. I have a bureaucratic shock. Why? Because before, as a director of Bali Tourism, I do execution. When there is hotel develop, I see the hotel, whether the hotel is in line with the regulation, where the hotel is already fulfilling the regional regulation that Balinese style, 40% building and at least 60% open space, and then we have setback regulation from the beach. So I did execution. But when I moved to central government, we don't have the field for execution. What we have is developing criteria, developing standard, developing procedures. So I have to change my mind. Before, as an executor in Bali, just do based on regulation. Then now in central government, I have to make the regulation itself. So again, it needs different behavior. That's why I said before, the behavior of a leader or how the leader behaves depends on the task given to him. I don't have any direct contact anymore with my communities. I'm staying there behind the table thinking about, oh, a 5-star hotel should be like this, A, B, C. Oh, a 5-star restaurant should be like this, A, B, C. Oh, a travel agency should fulfill this criteria, and so forth, and so forth. So, we have a different working culture. Then, in 2010, I was promoted to become Deputy Minister taking care of education. So, half of my body back to academic. Why? Because as Deputy Minister for Resource Development, I got 4 higher education, 4 sekolah tinggi pariwisata, higher learning education in tourism. But at that time, tourism is not science. Tourism was only considered an activity. Then, thinking for the future of tourism development in Indonesia, I believe in research, I believe in database program. So I was struggling to put tourism as a science of equal status with other science. I myself proposed to the Director General of Higher Education at the time to have ilmu pariwisata sebagai ilmu mandiri, tourism as a science. Why? Because when we put tourism only as a vocational education, then they just know how to clean the room, how to cook, how to serve. They don't know how to think the future of tourism. At that time also, we have a position in the Ministry of Education that when higher education must only be managed by the Directorate General of Higher Education, Depdiknas. But in my position, I believe those who know the technical aspect of tourism are Ministry of Tourism. That's why I struggle hard to put Tourism Academy directly under the Ministry of Tourism. Not only sekolah kedinasan, internal use school, but for public use, university should also under the technical ministry. So, Ministry of Transportation has its school for transportation knowledge. Ministry of Cooperative and Small Scale Business has its school also, not only for internal use, but to be disseminated to all parts of the countries, because we have around 541 regencies and provinces, so they need the human resources. At that time, I was also responsible to manage part of culture. But at that time, we have an MRA, Mutual Recognition Arrangement of ASEAN countries to exchange the manpower. In Indonesia, we don't have the certification system yet. So, when I was in this position, one of my focus was how to certify, how to develop certification program, not only for tourism, but also for culture. Because we have one of the basic foundation of our tourism is cultural heritage. So, I developed mechanism for cultural certification and tourism certification to be equal to other 9 ASEAN countries, because we have our MRA. So again, I have to do different things in different position. Next, in 2011, I'm appointed as Director General responsible for history and heritage. Pelaksana tugas Dirjen Kebudayaan. It is good time for me because my basic was tourism and I'm assigned in cultural Directorate General. So it is good time for me to merge or to accommodate the two conflicting yet complementary sectors, culture and tourism. You know, when we talk culture, most archaeologists would like to preserve the culture as it is. No, don't touch this because it is culture. No, don't change this because it is heritage. From tourism perspective, well, we have to promote the culture. We have to showcase the culture to the world. So, I have to juggle between culture and tourism. Culture on my right hand, tourism on my left hand. I try to combine the two. And fortunately, in 2010, we got new regulation, new Cultural Heritage Acts, whereby I was involved also in the process of the developing of the act, that in cultural conservation, we have three main components. The first is protection, the second is development and adaptation, and the third, my point, is utilization. That utilization is a way of, or a mechanism of conserving the culture. The back mind of this pillar, utilization, is that when the culture is not used by the community, the culture will be deserted. People will do their effort to maintain the culture, to preserve the culture, if the culture is useful for their life. So that's why I'm strongly concerned on utilization as part of cultural conservation. At that time, I was successful in promoting a number of cultural aspects of Indonesia to be listed in UNESCO's Cultural Heritage List, including Saman dance in Gayo, Noken in Papua, 9 Balinese dance in Bali, including Jatiluweh, touristic areas in Bali as one of heritage lists. And also at the time, because of the new regulation, there are some one point in the regulation that to abolish, to declare a cultural heritage, it must be declared by a team of experts. At that time, we don't have expert. Expert must got the certificate. I got the problem. Who should issue the certificate of expertise to become tim cagar budaya, to become expert team? I was confused. Who should issue the certificate of expert team? And then I worked hard with the Vice Minister of Culture Education at the time, Ibu Professor Windu. I put the axioma. The first, the certificate of the first doctor is not given by a doctor. The certificate of first lawyer is not given by a lawyer. So, as a government, I take the risk to give the certificate for 9% who I believe expert in culture, and then we make the team to become cultural heritage expert. I don't know whether it is in line with the rule, regulation, or I break the rule. I don't know. But I make it. I'm not expert in culture, but I issued the certificate for cultural expert. Next, after working in culture and tourism, I'm back as Deputy Minister for Marketing for Tourism. After the new administration of Joko Widodo. And Pak Joko Widodo give us a very, very high target. In 2014, the number of tourist arrival in Indonesia only 10 million. In 4 years' time, we are targeted to double the number to become 20 million, or average 25% increase every year. Academically, no formula can I do to achieve the target. Because the world increase only 6%. The international arrival of tourists increase only 6.4% something. ASEAN grow only 7%. We, Indonesia, is expected to have a 25% growth in tourism arrival. No mathematics can calculate the growth. And then I was assigned to be general, to be captain in this team to achieve the target. So what I did, under the guidance of my minister, who is expert in digital, so I shift the marketing from conventional marketing to digital marketing. I promote intensively and extensively in digital platform. I work very closely with TripAdvisor, Baidu, Google, Expedia, not only as a promotion, but also as a place of transaction. Look, buy, book, and pay directly in a digital platform. It is not easy because China has different platforms. They have Baidu, they have Alipay. For Europe, well, they have Google, they have TripAdvisor, they have Expedia, easier for us. Japan, different system. Korea, different system. And this is my challenge. I'm not expert in digital. But as a leader, I have my vision. The consumers has changed to digital. If I don't change, I will lag behind. I cannot achieve 20% growth. Impossible. So I did it in a very, very aggressive. That's the art of being leader. We don't know the technical aspect of digital. I don't know the algorithm of digital marketing, but I must do that. So in front of my staff, I pretended to be expert. Do this, do this, do this. In fact, I don't understand what I was saying. Before a meeting, I consult with my expert in my own office. What should I say to my staff? What should I instruct them to do? So I discuss 1 hour, and then in front of my staff, 250 people, I pretended to be expert. The PowerPoint is prepared by my staff. So because I did in a convincing way, then my staff followed me. They don't know that they are being cheated. And one of the things I have to change in working culture is to shift from bureaucratic mindset to entrepreneur mindset. This is the most difficult. This is what I said, developing the corporate bureaucracy. What is the characteristic of corporate bureaucracy? I call it, the minister call it, not me. We call it win-way. Speed, solid, smart. Before, whether it is true or not, most of bureaucracy are very slow. Most of bureaucrats things very complicated. When the simple thing can be made complicated, why should make simple? Make it complicated. When it's made complicated, we have our prestige. When we can stop people from moving, we are strong. That was the paradigm before. We have to change it to be a corporate bureaucracy or entrepreneur bureaucracy, to work win-way, speed, solid, and smart, and target-oriented. So, when developing program for marketing, I really work with expert and calculate. My budget was 1.4 trillion in 2017. Rupiah, Pak, not dollar. I'm sorry. I don't know, by theory. It is by instinct. So please correct me if I'm wrong. What is the task of the leader? First, pointing the direction. Where to go. That's the task of the leader. So, I point my finger. We go there. We go to achieve 20 million arrival, to achieve 270 domestic movement. That's my finger. And then the second task is to allocate resources. When I say we have to achieve 25% growth, it is impossible for me to try the sleeping market. Go to Argentina to promote, no. It's difficult. Go to Mexico to promote tourism, no. Because the acquisition cost will be very high. So where to go? I arbitrarily appoint only 10 main market. The first, go to our neighbor, because our neighbor is our main market. Go to Singapore, go to Malaysia, and then the growing market, China. Japan is declining. Don't put so much money on Japan. Because the effort to bring them back is very difficult. We study the characteristic of our friends from Japan. But go to India, because India is growing very fast. The economic growth is 7.4%. And the outbound growth is 10%. And so forth and so forth. So, it is really target-oriented. And I put figure on that. Okay, my director responsible for China. I give you $10 per head. The target for 2017 is 2.5 million Chinese tourists. So your budget is 2.5 million times $10. I will evaluate you in 3 months. If you have no progress, I will fire you. So I was really target oriented, because I have to achieve 25% growth. For Europe, I give $25 per head. Why different? Because the acquisition cost is more expensive for Europe compared to China. For domestic market, I give only 5,000, meaning around 0.4 US dollar. So again, what is the task of the leader in this case? I said before, 2 main tasks. First, taking the direction. Second, allocating the resources. Not only budget, but also I put my best staff in the bulky market. Because I check that every day. I'm like a CEO in entrepreneur entities. I check. And because I go digital, I have my war room. We call it war room. War room, I check it. I work very closely with immigration office, and the data from immigration I got the day after. So today is 18th of September. I got the data 17th of September. Every Monday, I go to the war room, see, bro, why the arrival of Singapore is decreasing? What happened there? I call my director responsible Singapore. You need to do more festival in Batam and Bintan to attract Singaporean. Why India is declining this week? And so forth and so forth. So I really work as CEO of a business entity. That's what I call entrepreneur bureaucracy. I might be wrong because it might be not the task of a deputy minister like me, but that's what I did because I am really task-oriented. And unfortunately, the task is given directly by the president, and it is very ambitious target. So that's all what I can share to you. But my point is, our behavior is, if not totally, it is strongly defined on what indicator our success is measured on. The second, what we should do in Indonesia is shifting the bureaucratic culture to become corporate culture. And that's what I call bureaucratic reformation. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Gede Pitana. Professor, have a nice trip, Madam. Professor Gede Pitana already, tell you about the history from the academics to bureaucrats. There are two things that are very, very, unique actually in Indonesia. When we have the regional autonomy law in the 1999 and implemented in the 2001, the law gave the autonomy not just only to the province but to the regency. But Pak Gede Pitana with all of his team can make this one, the one island, one management. Actually, the regency, they have their own management also, which is autonomy. In the other province, sometimes it cannot be like that, the regency can have a policy which is sometimes different with the policy of the province, but not in Bali. And the second one, Bali is very popular, actually. You are not in Bali, it's very popular. When I was in US, one of my classmates asked me, which part of Bali is Indonesia? My goodness, I said, Bali is part of Indonesia, it's not the other way around. But Bali is very, very popular compared to Indonesia. Indonesia, sometimes they call it Indochina or whatever. So, and you can see if the academician become bureaucrat, sometimes they still bring the sense of the academician. That's why I talk about the corporate bureaucracy, entrepreneurship bureaucracy, which is different with the old bureaucracy. With this one, I would like to invite all of you if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, we start with 3 first. Okay, Pak, please. Later on, I wanted to have the ladies also to speak. Is there a microphone?
Yes, I can actually shout.
No. Come on, Pak.
Oh, sorry.
It's recorded, so you will be caught by police.
All right. Name Yudi Kumoro from Gajah Mada University. I am not sure whether I can really grasp the idea from.
Please tell your name and your institution.
Wahyudi Kumoro Tomo. Wahyudi Kumoro. Gadjah Mada University. I'm not sure if I can really grasp the idea from Professor Alex. As always, he speaks very rapidly. So, but anyway, the explanation about phronetic leadership is very interesting. But again, what I would like to show is just two caveats. First, in a very, very rapid and very, very sophisticated changing in this world, there is simply no time to think among the leaders. And that's also exactly what has been explained by Professor Pitana a while ago. While at the same time, as you also mentioned, that when we talk about phronetic leadership, we can also refer to, philosopher like Aristotle or Plato, whom has from the start says the ideal of the king, the leader as the king, as a philosopher. But simply in these days, there's no time to think about the vision. So the risk for losing vision has always been there. And worse, the second caveat is that under the democratic society, we still believe in democracy. And I suppose the Philippines and Indonesia in the region is, I would call it as a paradise for democracy. But does it really be able to deliver democratic leaders or phronetic leaders? That is the same question when we talk about any other part of the world in which democracy has been resulted in very authoritarian and very self-centered leaders. People can talk about Erdogan of the Egypt. People can talk about Sebastian Kurz of Austria, and even, of course, the democracy failures in the U.S. When people talk about Donald Trump and all the things that has been going on in the last few years. So I don't know whether you can actually tap on that kind of caveats. Secondly, for Professor Pitana, thank you for all the explanation based on your personal career. But let me just ask a little bit simple question, because I was, in fact, Professor Pitana was my supervisor back in 1991 in Bali Tourism Development Project, at the time under UNDP financial aid. At the time, we had 15 sites in Bali, and one Bali, one management was the thing that we have already brought about at that time. But currently, let me just ask you, how do you put yourself in issues like the current issues, a little bit prickly issues, when we talk about, let's say, the toll road under the sea, or under the Nusa Dua Sea, and currently the Benua reclamations. When you talk about solutive discussions as a bureaucrat come professor, how put yourself, who will be the winner when we talk about this kind of stifling, issues, and we have simply no time, as you said, the win-win culture, speed, solid, smart, is not really that easy, because we have to think about the needs for the people, but at the same time, there are also political, political interests at stake. So that is my question to the two presenters. Thank you.
Thank you. We continue to the second.
Professor Pitana and Professor Alex, thank you for your comprehensive presentation. And I would like to...
Name, please.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, my name is Rudy Sumarwono. I'm from the Center for Study of Governance and Administrative Reforms, University of Indonesia. Professor Alex, thank you for your always inspiring and sometimes provoking presentation. I know this for almost 15 years, our friendship is very good. And also thank you for recalling our session and sharing with Professor Nonaka regarding phronetic leadership 5 years ago in GRIPS, Tokyo. Thank you very much. I would like to ask you about is there any possibility in a very near future there is going to be a sort of like a governance organization without the government? What I want to say is there's any possibility it's going to be like Alibaba or Facebook about the government? Why not? People never think about that before. Or do you think, can UN do that roles and responsibility become sort of the meta government all around the world? This is my question to you because you are very expert in this area. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you. The last one over there.
Thank you, I'm sorry. My name is Hari from National Institute for Public Administration of Indonesia, from LAN. Very simple question, and frankly, thank you to Professor Alex, Mr. Brillantes. Very simple question. Frankly, it's new terminology for me, phronetic leadership. And also you introduce another new, for me, new terminology, globalization. So is it also hard to pronounce? And co-opetition. But I really want to know what is the very nature of phronetic leadership. Is it same with if we extract and the very substance is wisdom? And I also want to know where does phronetic term comes from? Because I a bit disturbed by the word prone. Is it really comes from that word? Prone or no? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Alex, you can go.
Okay. First and foremost, actually, as you know, when we talk about phronetic, it's really the third type of wisdom. Aristotle. I mean, we go all the way down. Okay. They talk about episteme, knowledge. Then talk about techne, skill, episteme, techne, phronetic. In that sense, some kind of a combination. And when I was listening to this presentation, hey, we go all the way back to Aristotle, we go all the way back to Plato. Plato's pointing up, Aristotle's pointing down. Some kind of, I wouldn't say, some kind of combination. And if you look at it, it's not new in the sense that for the longest time, even we in public administration, theory, practice, praxis. Hegel talks about thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It is really continuous search of knowledge. And that dynamic is as old as civilization. Because, hey, that's what Aristotle and Plato said for the longest time. And what is true today, that's it's very relevant about our discussion today. What might be relevant 10 years ago. Sir, I really admired your presentation because I've been coming to Bali for maybe since 2002. I used to work in Timor-Leste for ADB. So I would always come by Bali, and one has really seen the incredible changes. I mean, because of a phronetic leader like himself. I mean, digital governance, targeting your market. But this is something that wasn't true when I was coming here some time back. So the world is rapidly changing. Question, are we able to change with it? And the more important question in relation to what Pak Rudy said is, can governance change? And to a certain extent, sometimes, and that was also in the presentation yesterday, sometimes, without meaning, the enemy is the government. Sometimes the obstacle is government. The obstacle is the bureaucracy, because we are so steep in doing things the way we want to, but when things change, we cannot change. So, changing our mental mindsets. Question, are we ready for that? Are we open enough to say, maybe we are the obstacle? That's why, but there, after having said that, I'm not romanticizing that. I'm not saying that in a dramatic way, but I think we should be open to the fact that many times government can be, our procedures can be the obstacle, but there are certain things that should be constant. Public administration, management, efficiency, economy, effectiveness, both public and private. But in public administration, we have to add the two E's. For whom is public administration? Equity. Is it for the poor? We should know who are our clients. And the last one, most important, which should be super constant, is ethics and accountability. Sometimes, our session started today about some kind of suggestion that ethics and accountability can be compromised. So I think that's why we talk about the 5 E's and an E. So in relation to your question, Pak Rudy, is, yes, things should change maybe at one point. I'm sure you've read this book, Reinventing Government. At one point, they talk about even privatizing jail management. Why not? I mean, the question is always asking why not. But there are two things that should remain. For whom? Equity. And the second thing that should be never ever compromised is ethics and accountability. Sometimes corruption becomes the problem of governance because of use of too much power. So that to a certain extent would be what, for me, would be what it's all. Things change, but there are certain things that should remain constant. And the first question, and I will shut up now, pertains to, do we have time to think? Yes and no. But a phronetic leader simply knows the essence. I think that's the point of it. As a phronetic leader simply knows the essence. He knows that it is good. So one is rooted. The whole point of ethics and accountability. And I think, I was in government also for a long time. I was some kind of a deputy minister, sir. And one would say, when you are in government, and when you're in the academic community, you begin to wonder, what they taught me in the university is not relevant, because when you go to the real world, you have opportunities, or people come to you and outwardly try to bribe you. Question, the moment you begin to compromise, the moment you begin to say, is that possible? Then you begin to the problem. Just say no. End of story. So there are things that are constant. So do you have time to think? Of course, if somebody will offer you something, no, period. But you say, well, when you start to begin to doubt or begin to entertain this, I think that's where the problem begins. Phonetic leader is somebody who says what he knows, he is rooted. But at the same time, does he have time to think? Of course, he might not have time to, but he's able to do things. In Filipino, this thing called oído. In one of our cases that we did for our study, one of our leaders, his name is Tomas Africa, said, I didn't know, in fact, he was embarrassed. I didn't know I was a phonetic leader, because he simply knows what he was doing. But it could be described as phonetic because he knew that to a certain extent it is just what should be done. Number two, he did it in a quick and rapid way. The way our director did here, in coping with the rapidly changing demands here in Bali. So time to think, yes and no, because you know what it is, but at the same time, we do have to implement. And in your last question, the last point, which pertained to political will, to a certain extent, a phonetic leader is also somebody who knows how to use political power. Sure, he's the leader. Priono said, the leader, and Sir said, the leader knows, he points where to go. But you don't say, charge, let's go there. I will follow, you go ahead. Of course, the leader has to go ahead, right? But at the same, he shows the way. He shows the way and knows how to, and I think we shouted Lao Tzu, leader knows and shows how to go the way, and his own goes there. So I think it's really a combination of he knows he knows the essence of what he wants to do, at the same time uses political power. At the end of the day, a leader has to make the decision, and he can't always consult. Of course, it's very important to consult, kotong royong, mushawara, as I said earlier, but at the same time, at the end of the day, Harry Truman used to say, the U.S. President, the buck stops here. The leader, phonetic leader, takes responsibility for what he does. So I hope I addressed the question. Terima kasih banyak. The globalization. Yeah, thank you. See, he's really my professor. He's like my dean. Okay, that's a very important point. globalization and co-opetition. We have to think global and act local. You know, keep your eyes above the clouds, theory, but your feet is rooted on the ground. You cannot do things, the sir was more saying, tourism, okay, fine. So theoretically, you go to Europe, you go, you know, but that would be the old paradigm. But he said, no, we have to target China. That's the global market. Japan, yes and no. So you think global, but act local, specific. And within the context, this is one of my favorite words, I talk about co-opetition. We cooperate, yet we compete. And I think that's important, towards a common objective. We don't put each other down, and I think that's also a variation for continuous improvement. Phronesis is always continuous improvement, not being satisfied with what we are. Status quo is unacceptable. Continue moving and moving. In my case, in the Philippines, we always say that because hey, we continue to have poverty in the Philippines. It is not acceptable. We have to continue moving. Question, what is the role, what is the response of public administration within the context of the two E's, equity and ethics and accountability? So, within that context, in ASEAN, for instance, co-opetition. You know, in ASEAN, we cooperate with each other. Sure, I was talking about cooperation, gotong royong, shawara, we love each other, etc., etc. But hey, we also compete with each other. And question, sometimes, I don't know, well, our former deputy minister, the minister for defense, Dr. Mercado is here, and he also used to be part of ASEAN, you know. And sometimes, yeah, we work with ASEAN. Question, can we discuss things that are not internal to ASEAN? Yes and no. But in ASEAN, that's a strength, at the same time, it's weakness. Because there are certain things that we consider only internal, which we cannot discuss, but that's a policy. But my point being, we in ASEAN, we cooperate. And sir, and I'll shut up now, talked about the importance of the ASEAN Quality Framework, okay? I used to be with the Commission for Higher Education. That's very good. And we would encourage students to go around, come to Philippines, come to Thailand, and it's similar to Erasmus Mundis. Question, we compete with each other. Can we attract students to come to the Philippines too? As we send students to come to Indonesia, why do they always want to go to Singapore? Why do they always want to go to Malaysia? Co-opetition. That's why, Phronesis, we have continuous improvement. Look at ourselves. How do we improve? I'm saying this as a Filipino. We have to continue to improve. Otherwise, within the context of competition, we might be left behind. And I think some of the slides yesterday were very, very powerful. Okay? Terima kasih.
Thank you, Pak. There is only one question for me. It is about reclamation. I don't know in the theory of public administration, where is the position of media? My conclusion with the debate on reclamation in Bali is the power of media, not only the power of love, the power of media. Why so? Let me put the reclamation issues in context. Reclamation issues is about political commodity. It is a political commodity because it is raised during the gubernatorial election 2013. The use of media was very massive, and at the process, I don't understand myself, and I don't understand the system, how the media work. People who are, well, reclamation is right here, maybe some 2-3 kilometers from our place here. But people there, up on the uphill, in the remote areas, also reject reclamation. What reclamation have impact on them? Nothing at all. Those on the other part of the island, in the northern side of the island, also reject reclamation. I don't know whether they understand what they are rejecting. But again, this is the power of media. And right now, if you pass by the toll road, there is reclamation. Is there any discussion? No one care. Jadi sekarang Pak ada reklamasi Pak. Di sebelahnya Pelindo itu Pak. Nggak ribut-ribut tuh. Waktu itu, 2013, big issues. Because this is a political commodity. At that time also,
whatever program is always responded in a critical way. For example, Bali needs 300 megawatt power. We need electricity. Our electric cable from Python, Java, we got 4, but still only 1 is functioning. Then the Bali government with central government try to use the local energy, which is cheap, clean, called geothermal. But it was refused. Why? The power of media and the commoditization of the issues by politicians. So, geothermal program in Bali was rejected. Please ask the expert of energy whether geothermal is the worst energy or the best energy. I don't know. I read the AMDAL, what is AMDAL? Environmental impact analysis of the issues. That's one thing. The second thing, all provinces want to have the region to become tourism designated areas, kawasan strategis pariwisata nasional, KSPN. But in Bali, kawasan strategis nasional, KSPN, was rejected. They don't want to do that. Again, I don't know whether they understand or not, but this issues was raised just right during the gubernatorial election. Because this candidate and this candidate, the political gains. And the third came reclamation. So the reclamation is a commodity. But again, right now, in the eastern part of the Ngurah Rai Airport in Benua, right now, reclamation is going on. No one cares. In the western part, Angkasa Pura is now doing the reclamation. No one cares. You can see right now, it is still going on. For me, again, it is the power of media, and Balinese are very sensitive with religious issues. When something is associated with religion, then a sudden they will say no. They will say no. Even though religion in Bali is in fact very, very flexible. And I read very detailed the environmental impact analysis of the reclamation. I read very detailed. From my reading, nothing wrong with that. Technically, economically. But I have a question also, the same as a Balinese. The issues is not really the physical reclamation, but who is going to do the reclamation and for what use later on. I have 100% confidence if the reclamation is going to be done by the government of Bali, then there will be no rejection. So that's the contextual position, Pak Ayudi. And then how I put myself. To be frank to you, I make a distance with the issues. Because I am, at the time, was assigned to achieve the arrival growth from abroad, the tourism growth. So I try to make distance from sensitive issues. I don't want to spend my energy and time to do things that is not directly linked with my tasks.
Gitu Pak. Jadi saya berusaha bikin jarak, tapi dari segi substansi itulah yang tadi pemahaman saya. Saya baca 3 AMDAL Pak, 3 AMDAL tebal-tebal sekali, saya detail, dan because my position is little bit political, I never come to the meeting discussing about reclamation. I read, if you read the invitation, who should give comment on the AMDAL, my name is there. But I never came to the meeting. Gitu Pak. Terima kasih Pak. Thank you Prof. Pitana. You remind me of the new forces in the politics. Before we always said there is a power of the executive, legislative, and judicative. But in the present there are the 4th power, mass media. It started with the Watergate scandal during the Nixon administrations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last one. Okay, go ahead, Pak Orlando.
Okay, I would like to congratulate Alex, Professor Alex and Professor Pitana for their excellent presentation. You know, before I came down, I turned on the switch and was watching the news, the headlines on CNN, and there was a story that attracted my attention. It's the investigation that is ongoing now about Amazon. And it appears that they're investigating to criminal liability because they're tampering with the ratings of the things that they sell on Amazon. I was enthralled by Alex's focus on a combination of theory and practice. In theory, we are taught how to think scientifically, to look for the evidence of our decision-making and governance. That requires the integrity of the facts that we base on which we base our decisions. And Professor Pitana mentioned media. You know, in responding to these megatrends, the challenge really is how do we act in this age of information to be able to determine what is factual or what is truth. Where is it? Is the truth not the truth if a president says that's fake news? Or if politicians just say you cannot trust the media because they also have their flaws. But how can we determine what the real facts are when, while we're happy that the people have been empowered to disseminate information, everybody is a broadcaster, everybody can write a story, anybody can post something online, and as a consequence say that's the truth. It appears that the cautionary tale before that has been told to us, that everybody is entitled to our own opinion. Now, it appears that we are also entitled to our own truth, to our own facts. So how do we react? How do we govern in a situation like this? The role of media has been mentioned. In reality, media now does not have the same power as it has before. However, the advantage of institutionalized media is that there's a checking mechanism, that there's got to be a clearing of what is disseminated, and we can trust them because they go through a process of establishing the integrity. I hate to perorate, but I would like to congratulate both of our professors for stimulating our thoughts, and I just wanted to bring up something that might broaden our discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prof. Agus.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Riono. My question goes to Professor Pratana, my friends. First, congratulations, you have a very interesting and challenging career path from campus to bureaucracy and back to the campus. Unfortunately, I don't have. Okay, I'm just wondering about how you handle policy coordination among ministries. I remember then we had discussion in 2003 after the Bali bombing, 2002. At the time you were the head of the tourism agency in Bali. After the Bali bombing, then the government just abolished the on-arrival visa. And you just complained that why should we restrict the foreigners to come to Indonesia while the Bali bomber actually Indonesian. They applied new regulation, then makes difficult and reduce the number of tourists in Indonesia. So, you know that bureaucrats normally they have a silo mentality. They don't care about what happened in other ministers. So I'm just wondering how you handle the policy coordination. Yeah, something difficult, but I should learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We go to the back first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Hartian Silawati from Transformasi, a project funded by GIZ and in cooperation with Ministry of Administrative and Bureaucracy Reform. So I was a little bit late coming to the this session. Maybe I missed some information, but it's very interesting to you, Professor Alex, when you explains about the phronetic leaders. So I imagine it's a combination about the capability or capacity of episteme and also the praxis capability or praxis knowledge. But yeah, of course, it's a perfect combination. But we know that the devil in leaders sometimes is on how to, you know, like execute their ideas. So sometimes the leaders know where to go and how to do. But yeah, what to do? But they sometimes had no idea how to do or how to execute the ideas. Yesterday afternoon, I attended a seminar here also discussing about this, what is this, followership, characterized by critical thinking and also active engagement. How do you see, probably, I don't know, the combination between phronetic leadership and also the followershipness characterized by active engagement and also this critical thinking could be, you know, like complement each other. So in order to avoid, like in this rapid change, the loss in, I don't know, loss in the change process, loss in transition. That's one point. Another point that you also mentioned that what makes different between private characteristic of organizing things and the public is on equality, ethics, and accountability. So here I would like to know how you means by accountability here. Is it more on the like vertical accountability or horizontal? It's more downward accountability. My point is actually much more interested on the downward accountability to the citizens. So how do you see the role of citizen in this context, the rapid change? Because since yesterday, we have heard about like how that's the government adopts the private principle into the government. So it comes with then entrepreneur governments and also like corporate style of government. But so far I haven't heard a lot how do you see the role of citizens, especially the civil society organization, contributing to the rapid change and also to cope with the negative impact of the rapid change? So that's two questions to you, Pak Alex. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Kush Varma. I'm from India. I'm a principal consultant governance in the Oxford Policy Management. I'd like to thank Professor Pitana and Professor Alex for their brilliant presentations. A question to Professor Alex. First time I heard about the phronetic concept, it reminds me of another concept, servant leadership. Is there a difference between the two? Because the both seem to be rooted in selflessness, in sacrifice, and in the public interest. The second point I'd like to make, and again I'd like Professor Alex to respond, is it too idealistic a concept in today's world, phronetic leadership? When you see the concept is more or less of the developmental state being supplanted by the predatory state, where the political executive is actually more or less criminals in disguise in many countries, and where the public interest is being sacrificed for private gain. That seems to be the kind of scenario which is playing out in so many countries. In that context, phronetic leadership seems more to be the exception rather than the rule. I'd like you to respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Last one.
Thank you. My name Buna. I'm from Cambodia. So I thank you very much for both of speakers. Because I'm involved with the reform in the government, so I would like to address my point to Professor Pitana regarding shifting bureaucratic culture to corporate culture. In theory, maybe it's easy to talk about this, but in practice, perhaps there are many challenges that we face when we try to move a bureaucratic culture that people has a determined mindset, organization culture, political involvement, rule, law and regulation, etc. So it's very, very challenging. So my question I divide into two parts. The first part is about when you thought about implementing this concept. So what did you prepare yourself for transforming organization from bureaucratic to corporate culture? I heard that you mentioned about leadership. We have to set the direction. We have to think about resource allocation. But beside that, what are the criteria? What are the preparation that you consider for successful transformation of organization? Is one part. And the second part is about after implementation of this idea. What are the success and the failure or the challenging that you learn from implementing this concept that you can share with us today? Thank you.
Thank you. Prof. Pitana, you start first.
Thank you, Pak Prof. I start from Pak Agus Pramusinto. Coordination is the most expensive things in government. But I learned that we can do coordination better if it is by force at the top level. My minister was successful in convincing the president that tourism is a core business of this country by saying, well, we have before oil and gas, but the volume of the production as well as the price is stagnant and even declining. So if we rely on oil and gas, it will be difficult, dangerous later on. We have also crude oil from palm oil. Well, it is very slow. So what is the future economy of this country should rely on? Agriculture, can we compete? Manufacturing, can we compete? So what sector we can compete with other countries? The answer is tourism and creative economy. So after my minister successful in convincing the president, then in the Renja government plan, tourism is put as one of the priorities starting 2015, 16, 17, and this year, 18. Based on this policy, then we work hard to develop what we call coordination forum, and we cannot do that ourselves. We need again the hand of the president. So we try to make a president decree on coordination forum for tourism development, and the member of the forum are minister related to tourism, especially Minister of Justice, especially the immigration, Minister of Transportation, especially air transportation, Minister of Public Work, especially Cipta Karya, road, Bina Marga, I'm sorry, and then Minister of Sport in terms of sport tourism and so forth and so forth. And in so doing, I use a very soft approach in coordination by convincing that my goal is their goal. My goal is not competing their goal. This is what Professor Alex say, co-opetition. We compete, in fact, but we do our cooperation. For example, I work with the Ministry of Transportation. What is the performance indicator of the dirigent of air transportation? The number of movement. Well, we have the same goal because my performance indicator is the number of arrival. The number of arrival is part of the number of passenger. So we have the same goal. Why don't we work together closely? We pull our funding, we pull our resources to do the same job. Okay, let us open Banyuwangi as new international airport. So they agree. Okay, let's open Wakatobi as new international airport. They agree. So we work together. Also, I work with the Minister of Public Work in the development of toll road, for example, or artery road. Well, Tanjung Lesung has been there for 15 years without any development because there is no road from Jakarta to Tanjung Lesung. And then we work closely with the Minister of Public Work. What is your indicator? His indicator is the length of the road and the economic development. So we have the same performance indicator. Let's work together. And starting 2016, the toll road is constructed going to Tanjung Lesung from Jakarta. To Palembang, in fact, not to Tanjung Lesung. The same also with the Ministry of State Enterprises. What is the indicator? The growth of economic. Well, I have Mandalika in Lombok. Why don't we work together? What is the strength, the strong point to develop Lombok? Agriculture? No. Fishery? No. What can we develop for Lombok? Tourism. Okay, let us work with ITDC under the Ministry of State Enterprises to develop Mandalika together. So again, the strategy is not do this for me, but no, let's do that for you. That's my strategy, and it works very, very nicely. The same also with immigration, with Ministry of Sport, with so many ministries. It is not easy. It is not easy. But again, the point is, the first, it must start from high level policy. It must be based on instruction of the big boss. Secondly, we convince them it is your performance indicator, not mine. And then for our friends from Cambodia, well, what to prepare in terms of shifting the bureaucratic paradigm from oldest bureaucracy to corporate or entrepreneur bureaucracy. I learned from the old saying, the old education method, stick and carrot. Who can change their mind, who can change the way they work, then we will give them carrot. I didn't do the punishment. I didn't do the stick, because stick always negative. What I do is more carrot for them. Let's say those who can sell very fast, I will give more funding, so they have chance more to go abroad, to have experience, to do the selling. So again, the old saying, stick and carrot, or punishment and reward, I do that very well. But not focusing on the punishment or stick, but I'm focusing on the reward, on the pujian, penghargaan, bukan hukuman. And what is challenge? The challenge is the old soldier. For the young generation, especially recruitment after 2003, they are all very good. They know the technology. They are not contaminated by the old culture, so easy to move them. But the middle level management in my office, those recruited before 2003 are difficult, very difficult, because they say, well, my boss cannot fire me because I'm a permanent staff. Pegawai negeri nggak bisa dipecat, Pak. Itu salah satu hambatannya. Kalau dibolehkan, saya udah ratusan memecat orang sebenarnya, tapi nggak boleh. I'm sorry that we cannot fire the civil servant in Indonesia. To do the firing of the civil servant, we need at least 9 months. 1 month the first peringatan, the first warning, second warning, the third warning. In every 3 months, it means 9 months. Then after that we can do the punishment. And before, it is funny, if a civil servant do not come to office for 2 months, we cannot punish. We can only punish them in the 60 days. So they don't go to the office the second day until the 58 days. And in the 59 days, they come to the office and do the fingerprint. So start again. Kalau ada ibu-ibu yang dari Menpan dan ada dari BKD, terima kasih sudah berubah aturan itu. And now it changed. It is akumulatif now. So I'm happy. For 32 days, 42 days. Akumulatif. Before it was consecutive. Now akumulatif. Now easier. I did apa Bu, meloncati Bu. Jadi sometimes I jump. I don't use the bureaucratic structure. So as a deputy minister, it is echelon 1. I should instruct echelon 2. Echelon 2 will instruct echelon 3. Echelon 3 will instruct echelon 4. Echelon 4 will instruct staff. But for the speed and solid, so I directly instruct the staff, do this, do this, do this. So the senior staff will get uneasy and they will feel that they need to cope with the way I work in speed, smart, and solid. Again, it is not easy, but if we do it consistently and by example. So in my case, I don't talk too much, but I do that by example. I come at 7 o'clock in the morning and go home very late. I never complain, but again, those who can follow me, I give the reward. Those who don't follow, I don't care. So that's my personal experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, let me tell you that I'm learning so much from you. One of the things that he mentioned is really, as a leader, one should choose the battles. Choose your battles. And even in my own modest experience in government, sometimes one has to choose the battles because if you're caught up trying to fight so many fires, one loses sight of the vision. So that's why if you're not an environmental expert, why discuss that? Let somebody else choose your battles. And number two, what just came out now, we can learn from the example of Singapore. Yesterday they talked about that they can fire the civil. I don't know if our colleagues from Singapore still here, that a presentation yesterday talking about the bill to choose to fire civil servants. Why not? I think we should learn to do that. I mean, and civil servants are sometimes so smart that on the 58th day they go, and there are ways around. No? And the other one, the Singapore experience, talk about withholding pension. Point is accountability. And as I said earlier, sometimes the enemy are the processes in governance. And I think it's within this context that we have to look at, challenge existing procedures, etc. I'm an academic myself, and I'm in the University of the Philippines. One of the first things that I think goes against us academics is this thing called, I am now risking my life here, tenure. At one point when I was still a professor, I said, can we just renew tenure every 5 years? Because sometimes if you have tenure, if there's tenure, they're there forever and ever. So I don't know if they, so I think I proposed this when I was in the university during the time of Dr. Beba. Maybe at one point, this security of tenure is good, but not good, because it can work against us the way it has in civil service. Of course, my good friend Noel there's look at me at one point, pero tayo sa civil service pare, sometimes we have to continue changing or challenging this thing given the VUCA world. Okay. So questioning, challenging, I think is very important discipline of we in public administration. I thank you, Dr. Mercado. He himself is a very, very popular communications person, among other things, having served as Senator and Minister of Defense. But he's so right about the fact that, to a certain extent, the communication channels can themselves be captured. And yes, I think the best example would be in the US today. It's an open debate, Fox News, CNN. And you have Donald Trump always telling the enemy is the media, fake news, etc., etc. So phronesis is really the ability to capture the essence. After a while, what Hitler said doesn't work. Keep on telling a lie, and the lie eventually becomes the truth. I'm not saying this would happen in the US right now, but people are really see the essence and look at what came out in the op-ed recently in New York Times, and of course the book by Woodward. They talk about the fact that one reason why Donald Trump is the way he is, he does not have, the op-ed in New York Times called him amoral. To a certain extent, phronesis, you have your rooted principles, ability to grasp the essence, because you know what is true, right? And if you're rooted, despite the accusations on fake news, as Dr. Mercado mentioned, one really knows what is the truth. And really, that's very, very important in the role of communication. And as you said, sir, sometimes, as we all know, communication is the fourth estate and can be captured. And to a certain extent, we should know also how to play the role. The second one is on followership and critical thinking. That was I was also in that session yesterday with our very bright young students from Sungkyung University. They talk about the importance of followership, the importance of critical thinking, the importance of citizen engagement, which is true. But at the end of the day, phronetic leader is one who knows how to use his political power. You cannot consult and consult. Sure, consultation is good. I mean, in the cases that I presented, in the cases of Indonesia, the president himself, Lusukan, in the case of Mitaka, the mayors, consultation is right, but at the end of the day, the leader takes responsibility. I think we can, but sometimes, I read a book one time that sometimes it was entitled The Tyranny of Participation. You know, sometimes we romanticize participation, accountability, good governance, etc. We keep on participating, but at the end of the day, leadership is also taking responsibility. That's why in our discussion yesterday, I thank you for that question. Yeah, at the end of the day, one has to take responsibility, which is what the phronetic leader is all about. Yes, you listen, but at the end of the day, use your political power, because your power is in your own integrity. One cannot be leader, as Dr. Mercado mentioned, one cannot be leader unless one has the so-called, quote-unquote, moral integrity or dimension. The third part, well, we talk about the importance of accountability, downward accountability and upward accountability. I think at the end of the day, it's really, you mentioned downward accountability to the people. In my own experience in government, sometimes I report to a minister, but sometimes what if what the minister says does not match with what the people need? Question, public administration, who is your public? At one point, we in public administration should be able to make a final decision that if our public is really our minister, upward accountability, but if it goes against what the people want us to make a decision. And I think it's very, very important to really know who is your public, which is what I said earlier, the two E's in the last two E's in our paradigm. It's really ethics and equity, for whom is accountability, and ethics and accountability. So I guess to a certain extent, it's really downward accountability rooted in your own moral compass, as we would say. And thank you for the question about our colleague from India. He talked about many kinds. And sometimes this whole discourse on leadership can become a whole industry. As you know, you have transformational leadership, you have divergent leadership, servant leadership, now phronetic leadership. Excuse me, phronetic leadership is not new. It's really to a certain, just going back to the basics of what we know. But sure, it is a theory that continues to evolve and has to respond to I guess, the VUCA world. It has to respond to the mega trends. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that do remain constant. Phronesis talks about the importance of knowing what is the truth. It's really knowing what is the essence of why we are there. So I think to a certain extent that is what phronesis is all about. It is new, but not new. It's something that talks about something that is rooted, which is what leadership is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I don't want to give the conclusion for this session, not because of the time is already up, but because all of you are phonetic leaders. That's right. Okay. Let's give a big applause to the two of our speakers.
Thank you so much to the moderator, and you are also such a phonetic moderator this session. And thank you so much once again. Let's give a round of applause to the moderator as well, ladies and gentlemen. Not just the speakers for the first session.
That was plenary session, ladies and gentlemen. Now it's time for a token of appreciation, which is going to be presented by Ibu Sri Hadiati. Please come forward, join us on the stage.
As the Prime Secretary of the National Institute for Public Administration, please. Thank you so much for Professor Igede Pitana for your valuable insights today and for being here, of course, with us. And also to Professor Alex. And of course to our moderator, Professor Priyono. Please have a group photo for a while on the stage. Thank you so much to Ibu Sri and also to all of the speakers and the moderator for our first plenary session today.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again we would like to remind you that it's time for a coffee break. Remember, just for about an hour, and then we are going to proceed the agenda by the parallel session, and we have parallel session 3 and we are going to divide it into 4 different rooms, like yesterday we did, right?
Yes,
Here.
that's right. So ladies and gentlemen, please kindly remind yourself that we only have a short time for coffee break session. It's only about 10 minutes left, as we should start the next parallel session at 11 a.m. local time. And for the parallel session, still the same room. So this room will be Rama room that will talk about people. And then the room next to us is the public services.
And of course, we still have an institution team. Don't you remember the venue that we had yesterday?
Yeah.
That which is located at Gamelan Resto. And for the ethics team, we have at the Gamelan Resto Ballroom
Gamelan
B.
room.
Yeah, Gamelan Room B, right?
Yes, Gamelan Room A and also Gamelan Room B, which is near the retreat garden.
And then we will have a lunch break again. And after lunch break, we would like to invite you again for the parallel session 4.
That's right. So, ladies and gentlemen, lunch are provided at Cuisine Restaurant, the same restaurant like the previous day. And then after that, we continued with the next parallel session. And this evening, we will have the gala dinner at the Garuda Wisnu Kencana. So once again, enjoy your coffee and also tea time break. And we'll see you at the parallel session. Thank you.